May could go back to the EU. She could ask them for a better deal for Britain, concessions that would need to be swiftly negotiated before the deadline. Or she could ask to have that deadline pushed back. It's an unlikely option, but May could roll the dice by calling a snap election to try to gain more support in Parliament, or another referendum, something she's vowed not to do. Failing that, Britain could leave on schedule but with no deal. For a sense on how this all might end, we've turned to Anand Menon, an esteemed professor of politics and foreign affairs. He also heads an initiative called the UK in a Changing Europe. So Anand Menon, thank you for helping us out here. We know there are a number of scenarios that are possible. What do you think is most likely?
I think the key to British politics at the moment is that all the outcomes are quite unlikely. One of them will happen. It is far too soon to say yet, because actually we're just starting that process of parliamentarians having to make choices. They've said they don't want the deal. Now they've got to decide what they do want. And I think the three options are general election, unlikely because the Conservatives don't want one. Another referendum, unlikely because there's no majority in there. No deal, unlikely because there's absolutely no majority in there. What we have to wait and see is how MPs start to evolve in their thinking and if something becomes more popular amongst them.
It's been interesting watching this country tie itself in knots and then looking at the 27 countries of the EU speak with sort of one cohesive voice. So looking at that bloc, do you think there's any incentive for them to open up renegotiation?
I think the EU will be looking at this thinking, should we waste time and energy trying to make concessions given the scale of the defeat? So I think the scale of the defeat matters in that way. Ultimately, I think what's going to happen is we'll have the vote tomorrow, Theresa May will talk to party leaders, then she'll go to Europe and say, I reckon if we can do this and this, I might be able to squeak this through. At that point, then I think the European Union will talk to her, but not before.
What is there to be afraid of with a hard Brexit? Because you hear so many people say they are afraid of it.
Well, this is a question that's really misunderstood. In the event of no deal, the issue isn't trading on World Trade Organization terms. The issue is that the legal infrastructure that governs our interactions with Europe, whether it's flights, whether it's travel, whether it's trade, whether it's medical certification, ceases to exist. All of a sudden, we're in a legal vacuum. At that point, you're going to have chaos, at least in the short term, and that's the real danger of no deal.
Okay, we'll see what happens. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.